I can hear you typing, Corey.
All right.
Here we go.
Talk shoe. Recorded live.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you may be, across the nation or around the world. Once again, you are listening to the VMware Communities Roundtable podcast. This is podcast number 693. My name is Eric Nielsen, and with me today, I have my favorite co-host, Corey Romero. Today is Wednesday, June 14th, 2024. It's actually not Wednesday, it's Friday. This is a special recording. We had meetings with our CMO on Wednesday, so we moved it to Friday. So we're excited to have Chanu and Rutger Blom here, or Blom. We'll see how he says his last name too, and get on with the show. Today, we're going to be talking to both of them about their lab version V6, which is a great provisioning lab that they've got running on their blog, rutgerblom.com. So we'll talk to them. But before we get to that, Corey Romero, how you doing today?
Doing well, Eric. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, fantastic. Fantastic, as you say. Like, how's the weather out there in Utah? Is it still snowing?
Don't know. Haven't been outside. Don't know if it's warm. Don't know if it's cold. Haven't been outside in a few days.
Oh, all right. Well, there you go. He's like, you know what? I'm going to look in the camera. I'm going to say, I have no idea. I haven't been outside.
Nope.
It is beautiful in the Bay Area. It is just the perfect weather. It's 75 degrees in the Bay Area, not too hot, not too cold, beautiful, cool, crisp mornings. You go out for a coffee and it just feels wonderful. So I think this is why, we live in the Bay Area this time between now and August where it gets 90 to 100. And then, I guess it's pretty good weather most of the winter time too, but beautiful weather here in the Bay Area. Silicon Valley is just hopping with AI. We announced our earnings yesterday. I only have like a couple days to talk about it before they blacklist us again. So we're excited. The data center is thriving. SDDC is thriving. They said we're on track to make our numbers. So, these are just what was announced in the earnings call. If you want to go listen to that, we're excited about the fact that we're doing well. VMware's doing well. AI in the data centers doing well. They're seeing a surge in the SDDC, and we're here today to talk about the SDDC.Lab. So excited about all that's going on. And then at the same time, we're ramping up for Explorer. So all the Explorer announcements went out for the first round of sessions. If you got rejected, it means you're rejected. Your session did not get accepted. If you got accepted, you might have got a notification. If you didn't get any notification, it means that your session is still being evaluated. So there will be a round 2 of sessions that are being evaluated, and then they'll go out, I think July 8th or sometime in that time frame, the first week of July. And so if you haven't heard yet, either you got accepted, congratulations, or excited to have you at Explore this year, or you got rejected, sorry about that. And then if you are waiting, you're still waiting. For instance, on the code and community sessions, I think we still have maybe 10 or 15 slots to accept some additional ones this month. And so we're just going through those lists right now to pick up some of the last community sessions, and those will go out when the track owner hits go out. So we're able to actually send out an acceptance. And so you could get an acceptance between now and July 6th. By July 6th or 8th or whatever the first week of July is, then everything has to be in, and you'll get accepted or not accepted. We do reserve a couple slots for sessions running up into August, where if we have something really interesting that somebody presents themselves and says, hey, I got this really cool session, we'll have a couple openings. And then of course some people will drop out, so there are always a few extra opening, but mostly content calendar gets nailed down in mid-July, and that's what we're running with. So congratulations to everyone that heard they got a session accepted, and for those that are still waiting, keep your fingers crossed. And for those rejected, sorry to hear that. So that's what's happening. Other in the news news scenarios, Corey. I don't know if there are any other news. I know we are having a leadership gathering that will be somewhere in the Venetian. So if you're a vExpert or you're a vMug leader or you're a Tanzu, member leader, you could get an invite for that. It's not unlimited invites, but we think we should pick up everybody that we need to pick up. If you're going to be at Explore, I think, Corey, you have asked people to register on the vExpert portal to let people us know. Yeah.
RSVP. Yeah.
Okay. Great. Has anybody RSVP'd?
Yeah, they have. I don't know the numbers off the top of my head. I think last I looked was about 85. And I think that was last Friday or this Monday.
So the great news is it's going to be at the Black Tie, and that's in the Venetian. So you don't have to walk down the strip and take a train and a bus and an airplane to get to the Pinball Museum. This year, we're just going to have it up in the Venetian, be a little bit more traditional. So we're happy about that. So that's happening. The hackathon, I think, is getting announced next week. We got a website up. We haven't announced it yet, but there is a website that you'll be able to go and join a team. We're going to have some good open categories this year, so that if you're not on a team but you want to show up and be with us, I think that's Monday night. And the other great thing is we have a fantastic room right on the main hallway of the Venetian going into the, if you've been to the Venetian in the Expo Center, you walk down the long hall to go into the conference area. The hackathon's going to be right there. Right. So last year, I feel like the hackathon was down in a parking garage. It wasn't. It was down somewhere in a lower level. You had to go hunt for it. This year, we're going to be right front and center. We're going to have signage up, and we're going to have it more of an open kind of concept. So if you join a team, you can do your team project over the next couple of months and then come and present. But we're also going to have a short kind of contests going on as well. So get your PowerShell on. So if you want to write a Perl or PowerShell script, we'll have some categories for building something. And we're trying to put together a little bit of training. So you get a little bit of training for the on-prem event. So we'll have an on-prem, and then we'll have the teams as usual. We're trying to hit, I think, 150 people this year to get there. Should be fun because it's local. You don't have to travel. It's just going to be at the event center. So if you don't want to go party, you want to come, be technical on Monday evening, you come hang out with some automators, coders, and learn a few things. So I think that's the news for this week with regards to Explore. And I think that's all we're going to talk about. So without further ado, let's get to our guests, Rutger and Lewis. Rutger, why don't you do we do on the podcast? Tell us 2 or 3 minute elevator pitch. How did you get here? What's been your career arc? You went to school or didn't go to school? And what have you been doing to get you here?
Well, I've been in the industry for quite a while. I would say I started out somewhere in the middle of the 90s, just before the big IT boom. So it was. I've been working as a sysadmin for quite a long time, and after a while, I went over to becoming a consultant. And I became familiar with VMware technology quite early on. So I think it was maybe, the second or third release of ESX that I went hands-on with the technology. Somewhere, I think it was 2016, so quite late, I went from being a sysadmin to a consultant, being primarily focusing on VMware technologies, VMware solutions, implementing, helping customers figure it all out, both when it comes to implementations and then also design and stuff like that. I've been even at VMware for a brief period as a solution engineer, specifically for NSX. So that was also quite interesting. And at the moment, I'm back again in a post-consultancy role where I'm again helping out customers.
Customers,
with,
great. Yep.
Yeah. Customer facing.
SDDC focused. Yeah, right. Perfect.
SDDC focused still. Yep, for sure.
So it's in the Bay Area.
No, I'm actually based in Sweden, so I'm pretty far away from the rest of you guys. So I'm in the south of Sweden. And
beautiful country.
Yeah.
So it's 1:30 p.m. here in Silicon Valley. What time is it?
Yeah, it's 10:30 p.m. here.
10:30 on a Friday night. I appreciate
on a Friday night, exactly.
Right.
Yes.
That's right. All right, Lewis, we'll jump over to you, and then we'll loop around to Rutger, your blog. But Lewis, tell us about who you are and how you got here and where you work.
Certainly. First of all, I'm based over here in the Silicon Valley, and I started down the path of computer science, got my computer science degree, and I did a lot of consulting in high school and so on. It's when I started my company, Onsite Network Solutions, focused a lot on network architecture design, got into the whole NetWare, Microsoft, really went heavy into Cisco networking, and then I came across virtualization. So I did a deep dive in that with my love for networking and virtualization. That's how I got into NSX and eventually, obtained my VCDX in network virtualization. Nowadays I do a lot of architecture and consulting, network. I help customers get where they want to be with their designs and their networks. So a lot of that also. I do dabble with IPv6, but my true love is networking and NSX.
All right, fantastic. Yep, I could see that career. Both of you very strong in the networking space, right? Cisco, Silicon. How do you make a living in Silicon Valley? Because it's like, even I go to the user group, I'm like, I don't know if there's that much IT left here, right? There's a lot of technology, a lot of coders, a lot of engineering, but I was like, how actually, but networking, because of Cisco and all the networking stack, that's a tough thing to learn. My brother-in-law worked as a SE at Cisco for a lot of years, and we'd have Christmas gatherings, and he'd talk the networking stack and the protocols and the speeds of the protocols, and like it made my head dizzy, right? Like I could never could never stay current enough to even have a great conversation with him when it comes to the full networking stack and the pipes and the feeds for the switches, right? So cool. All right, so Rutger, we're here. The reason we invited you on is that you have this Lab V6, blog that you've been building an Ansible package for being able to deploy, stack solutions, whether it be, vSphere, vSAN, NSX, ARIA, Tanzu. You have this great, blog article and series and Ansible package that builds all this. Why don't you take us through what this is before we get into V6 and the features? I will say that if you want to go to his blog and follow along while you're listening to this, if you got a browser open, you can go to Rutger Blom, RUTGERBLOM.com. So Rutger Blom, BLOM. So RUTGERBLOM.com. And it's a 2024 article. So 2024-01-26 is when he published it. And it's called SDDC.Lab V6-released. Go look around or go to Google. You can find the article, and then you can follow along with what he's got. And he's got a link to the previous articles that talk about previous releases. So go check that out while we're talking. So Rutger, why don't you take us through what the series?
Yeah, sure. So this goes back, actually, I think I had to look it up, but this goes back to 2020, I think. It was like early 2020 where I kind of, like many other people in this industry or in this line of business, kind of was looking for how can I provision my lab environments in an easy and convenient way. I constantly found myself, having to build labs for different projects, and so that was one reason why I started to look into how can I do this in a smarter way. Also, at the time, I was very much into NSX, and I wanted to have a lab where I could play around with the technology and kind of mimic customer environments and that kind of stuff. So that made me kind of start looking around. What is there today? What is there we can use or I can use for that? Second thing was that I at that point had a upcoming project where the customer actually wanted me to deliver their kind of installation in Ansible code. So it was kind of a twofold reason for why I started to look into into this area, and I stumbled upon a GitHub project by I think he's called Nielsen. He was at the time a VMware employee. Let me look up his last name, Nielsen Simonov. He had built something with Ansible, where he automated kind of the deployment of a vSphere environment with NSX on top of it. I started to look at this code. I thought it looked pretty cool. I tried it out myself, of course, and I quickly realized that this is something I can work with. I can further develop because it was a little bit outdated, and I noticed that Nielsen had not been kind of keeping it up to date. So I was actually contacting him and asking him like, hey, would you mind if I take your code as an inspiration for a project that I'm thinking of doing myself? I need to have an Ansible kind of package for deploying labs. And he said, that's fine with me, no problem, just go ahead. So that was early 2020 where I basically took his code or inspired by his code and started to build something myself using Ansible, publishing the code on GitHub. So I wanted to do it on GitHub as a public project where I could, people might want to jump in and help me out with it. I wanted to have that option, and it was actually quite early on in the project. I think after a couple of months that Louis, he reached out to me. I'm not sure how he found out about my project, but somehow he did. And he was kind of, asking like, hey, I see that you're doing something here with NSX and with vSphere and Ansible. Sounds very interesting. I've been doing something similar a year back with another scripting language. So he was kind of like, do you need any help? Or I have some ideas about how we can improve this. So and that would never have happened probably without doing it on a public repository on GitHub. So
I was just going to ask that. That was going to be a question out of you. It's like, you just put this on GitHub then, right? And then you ask Louis to help, and now you have a collaborative way to work on scripts together, right?
Exactly. It's quite amazing. And well, Louis has to take it over from here. Has to take it from here because he can talk for that himself. But we kind of start to collaborate pretty intensively throughout the rest of 2020 and even 2021.
So maybe we should, and I don't know if Louis, you want to take us through this, but as people are listening, I went and looked at the blog article and it becomes very clear what it is, but maybe Louis, maybe you can take us through the high level, like if I'd never heard of this, what is it actually doing?
Sure. So it's a set of Ansible playbooks, and there's a configuration file that is written in YAML that the user can go ahead and modify. We provide a template of the configuration file. A lot of they're mostly filled in. There's a few sections that we've mostly grouped together. We've also spent quite a bit of time on the README file in the GitHub repository so that users can just follow along. It takes them step by step on how to deploy their Ansible server, how to modify the config file for their environment. I've even gone ahead and created some network diagrams showing how everything fits in. That is also up there. We've added that to the README. So once you have the configuration file, then that is really the blueprint, if you will, as to how everything is going to be deployed. It builds a fully nested environment of whatever you have in your config file, and it fully configures everything. So we deploy the edge router. We use Vios for that today. We use vCenter. We deploy vCenter, all the EXI hosts. We build the clusters, we provision vSAN, we deploy NSX, we deploy ARIA, and we even go into NSX and we configure the BGP connectivity at the edge with the upstream router. So at the end of the day, once all this gets deployed, and depending on how large your config is and how fast your servers are, it's anywhere from about, let's say, an hour and 15 to an hour and a half. You'll have a fully running nested lab environment that then you can test whatever you like with it. So that's kind of the gist of what the project is all about. Rutger, have I left anything off?
No, I completely agree. And I think what is important to mention as well is that we really focus on we want the end result of the deployment to be something that is very similar to something you would find in an enterprise. So it's not like we try not to make too much compromises. Like we're not thinking about, okay, we have to do this on very, very, very little capacity. We really try to even though we keep it in a small scale, we try to set up the pod. We call a stack like that a pod. Set it up in a way that is very familiar with somebody that is working in a enterprise today with VMware technology and VMware platforms. So it's very I don't say it's the right word, but it's very authentic to what you would see in a real environment, so to speak. There's not like any.
Do you guys spec out like, I'll a couple questions, right? Like, I don't know which one you want us to take this, but do you spec out what you need from a systems perspective? If I'm going to choose a particular stack, like I go, okay, here's the YAML file. I'm going to have, vSphere and Tanzu. That's all I'm interested in. How would I know then what hardware and how much memory and what footprint I need in order to be able to deploy this? And do you kind of help with that, or how does that work?
So I can probably address that a little bit. There are some guidelines in the README. It is all going to depend what the sizing of, let's say, the ESXi hosts, that people want to make, or whoever's deploying it wants to size those up, how much memory, CPU resources. So there are some minimums. But
minimums. That's what I'd say. Like all you really need is minimums here. Yeah. Then if you want to, scale it out, you probably can. But if this is for lab and test, then I would just need to know, like, what's my minimum in order to get this running, right?
I'll be honest with you, it's been a while since I've gone and looked at the minimums, so I don't remember what they are offhand. Rutger, do you recall?
Yeah, I think you're looking at something like I'm having a powerful server desktop in my room. It's having a 256 gigabytes of RAM. So that gives you kind of an idea what you probably need to spin up at least one or two pods.
I didn't mean to ask what it was. Just you do have it so that I can come in here and
exactly
read me and figure out, like, because that's where for me I start with, like, okay, I've got this little guy. Will this work? How much do I actually need in order to go run this stuff and revision it? And then it sounds like you also take us through the requirements for Ansible, right? And like how to get your Ansible set up in case you don't know Ansible very well.
We have step-by-step for every command you run, what in the order it needs to be, and to help you set up the entire Ansible server. The other thing I didn't mention earlier, which is there are two items kind of important, is we use only released ISOs from VMware. So we don't take special ISOs. The ESXis are all built from released GA ISOs. And after the whole lab or the whole pod is deployed, it generates essentially a web page, an HTML file with all of the settings of what was deployed, so that you then have a single point you can go to for that particular lab to, for historical reasons, if you need to just see how anything's configured.
Are you delivering the ISOs as part of the download, or do you just say, go get your ISO for this version of the product? Right.
Correct. Yeah, so go ahead.
I was just going to say, so it's up to the end user to go ahead and log in to the respective site, download all the ISOs they need. We have a software repository. We have a little script in there that builds out the directory structure, and then you start populating the directory structure with the ISOs.
Yeah, nice. That makes sense. And have you seen people using this? Right, like I know you guys like it, but do you get people that use it? Do you have a little Git following of people that follow the project and download things and give you comments on it?
Yeah, I think I've seen some people use it. We have had feedback as well. It goes a little bit up and down. It's a bit difficult to estimate exactly how many people are using it. I know some people within VMware are using it. Some people at other companies are using it, and it seems to be a project that is quite popular. I mean, we get a lot of positive feedback.
Your article trended on social, because this is why you're here, because it trended on Dynamic Signal. We got a lot of lights. We got a lot of, and we get a spreadsheet of all the things that are in Dynamic Signal which is our advocacy platform, and then we look at how many clicks and how much reach and how many reshares and how many people actually click to read the article. And you did trend, so you get visibility. Now, sometimes things that end up trending, right, people are clicking and sharing because it's like fun to share it. But if you actually get drilled down to like how many people actually read the article and are actually doing any of it, you kind of go like, okay, there's clickable and then there's actually useful things. And Eric is clickable. William Lamb is useful, right? Like, so I understand how this works, right? So it's fun. That's good. On GitHub, I guess for Ansible, as long as we're on Ansible, does Ansible have a free version of this that you can use, or do you actually have to be an Ansible Red Hat / IBM customer?
No, they have the community version, so you can just fetch those modules that are needed. We have also documented exactly which modules you need. As long as you follow the instructions, you will end up with the modules required. They are fetched automatically from the Ansible Galaxy, where they host the community collections. So that's all for free. There's no software involved that costs any money.
All right, got this. Next question, and I'll keep going until you guys want to talk about something else. Sure. But I'll just keep going. Like, so as Broadcom has jumped in, and we got rid of blockchain, and we got rid of some products here or there, and we're consolidating projects into VCF. And we still have vSphere, we still have Enterprise Exchange. Do you guys have to look at that and then look at what to do with next version of your product and go like, okay, what's real, what's not? Because that's the other problem I always have with these places that, if it goes too long, you get bit rot or things aren't the right version. How often are you guys meeting to keep track of this?
Yeah, I would say quite regularly. I mean, the beauty of this project is that the framework actually allows, we've been doing this for 4 years now. And we've actually only had to make minor changes because of software differences, from old to new versions. That's normally working quite okay. We sometimes need to upgrade a module or refer to another piece of software, but it's been remarkably stable in that regard. So even though we went from vSphere 6.7 to now vSphere 8, it's still basically the same code we're using for deploying it. So it of course depends all on the APIs, because in the end, what Ansible is doing is basically talking to the APIs that VMware provides in their solution. So, but they've been remarkably stable, and I'm not sure. What do you say, Louise? I think it's been quite okay to maintain it from that perspective.
And follow up before you answer, Louise, and does this still work? So you have vCenter Server version 8 up.2. I'm assuming that if I'm still at version 8, update 1, and ESXi version 8, it still behaves properly.
Yes. And you can deploy, I haven't tested the 6X in a while, but this has been deploying 6.7 through 7, no problem. 8, we ran this. There have been, that I can recall, one slight issue we ended up having to write some code for. Most of our issues have been outside of the VMware products. They've been with some of the routing that we do, or the edge router. We've had some as that product has revved, we've run into some issues there. But like Rutger said, a lot of the stuff that we use from the VMware side, we've got all the frameworks in place, and those have gone pretty smoothly.
Right. So I'm looking at your diagram on your blog, which is which is nice, but gets back to a firewall, right? And if I deployed my lab and I put it internally behind my firewall, it's all fine. Do you guys, I think you have firewall provisioned in this, if I was reading a blog article, right? Do you get into configuration, or how do I know what ports to open and how to enable this if I want to plug it into the internet?
So I don't think we have specific ports listed. It would be just regular 443, and if you're going to do SSH, things like that. But generally, the way this is deployed is we'll have one or more pods, and they're all behind a layer 3 switch for the environment. And so with pod to pod, there's free communication, so that we don't have to worry about any of the ports there. I know, Rutger, you've played around with this where you've needed to modify some ports. Maybe you can expand on that.
Yeah, so we have the option to do firewalling in the VMware router. Sometimes when I'm doing some project for a customer that has a firewall in between different environments, so then you need to mimic that as well. So you could use the VMware router as a firewall. between pods. By default, everything is open. We do not do any firewalling within the environment. So the only thing you need to think about in your case, if you want to hook it up to the internet and make sure you can access it from the outside, is like Luis mentioned, the 443, maybe the 22, or whatever you want to access from the outside.
And I guess you answer what I was getting at, which is how much do you do across pods as well, right? And what's the network architecture on the inside? And then if I want to go on the outside, how do I make that happen? Because you guys are the network.
Exactly.
Yeah, the other thing I'll point out too is in the overlay within NSX, we provision or support not only v4, but we can also provision, and we do support v6, not for the management interfaces, but for actually the overlay traffic. We provision and configure all the BGP for v6 as well as v4 if that's enabled in the config file. And so all that works end-to-end v6 from the overlay environment.
Okay, I got to switch gears because I know we will run out of time. We still got some time, and I assume you guys can dribble over the hour a little bit, right? Given it's a Friday afternoon, we got a late start. But looking at your article, let's talk about the new features and improvements. So anybody's ever used this before, now you can talk about what you actually just got done releasing in January, February, right? So let's talk a little bit about the features. First one you've got listed is automated deploy NSX advanced load balancer, including configuration of NSX integrated NSXT cloud. So let's talk through that one.
Now, NSX Advanced Load Balancer is the latest product we added to the project, so to say. So it was kind of new. It was already there in version 5, but it was not really. It was a little bit in a pre stage. So now it's completely integrated with the project. So if you want to deploy an NSX Advanced Load Balancer instance in your SDDC.Lab, you could just kind of in the configuration file say that you want to deploy it, and the rest of it will be taken care of for you. So there will be an NSX Advanced Load Balancer instance. It will be configured, of course, and it will also configure itself to integrate with NSXT, or it's called NSX nowadays, but there will be an integration between the Advanced Load Balancer and NSX. So you can when you spin up workloads in NSX, you can use the Advanced Load Balancer as the load balancer instead of the native load balancer in NSX. So it's something that we've been working on for a while, and now we felt like it's stable enough and good enough that we can actually have it in the release notes for version 6.
It's nice. I assume this is for replication too, right? Like this is the whole point of this is to be able to then replicate this whole environment. So if I want to set up a pre-stage to staged and then a pre-production production and then play with it and get a workflow on how I want my environment to behave across this is just nice to be able to replicate my whole instance and have a new instance that I can screw up.
Exactly. So a lot of this is also driven by me and Luis wanting to learn new stuff. I mean, that's both on the Ansible side. I mean, when we started off with this project, we did not know much about Ansible at all. So we started from scratch. We had to learn it. And the same goes for when VMware releases new products or new releases. We naturally, when we interface with customers, they expect us to know this stuff. And one of the ways to learn a new technology is to spin it up in a lab. And as we have this project, it makes sense to look at every time we have a new product or VMware releases a new product or a new version is to look into can we spin this up automatically using our project. So it's been really a journey in that regard as well.
Another feature that's close to my heart, which I appreciate, is the development of credentials file for Firefox to automate login to different management UIs. How many management UIs are there these days? I thought we were getting rid of all the multiple management UIs, and you have that. But it is good. Like, how many management UIs do you find yourself needing to manage when you built that?
Well, I'm the one that got tired of typing in all the URLs and everything. So I'm the one that spearheaded that piece of it. Essentially, that file includes all of the logins to the various products that we support across all the different possible pods. So it's just one file and we give you the instructions on how to install it into Firefox, and you can then use that to log into anything within one of your pods. So it really simplifies the environment, and it also provides all the passwords and everything so that you don't have to sit there typing passwords all the time. It just takes you straight in.
So Lewis, you obviously do consulting, right? You have customers here and there, or otherwise you wouldn't be able to make a living. Do you ever use this framework when you're going into a new project, going, we can spin you up something pretty quick and get you up and running for testing? Like, do you actually use this as part of your consulting practice?
Yes, I actually, when I engage with customers, if it's an NSX type project, this is something I'll bring up and say, would you like to, possibly consider spinning up a lab environment, or setting aside some hardware, create a dedicated lab, and then we can. And in fact, for one customer, we did this: is we, spun up their environment how it would be, and we also went through a whole migration, all virtually within the nested lab environment. So it's definitely something that I suggest to customers as good thing to have, and then plus after the whole deployment is done, now they have a sandbox area. They can test upgrades, they can test patches, they can learn from it. So yeah, it's definitely quite helpful in that regard.
Yeah, and I think that I've heard this before. There are different guys in Europe will do this as well. Corey, I'm trying to remember the something com division, spend some time, working on their own environment where they could then spin these up and have test environments for customers, right? And even VCDX at 181 with his lab environment, wherever he operates out of, I think, Netherlands or somewhere, like he has, there's reasons to be able to demo things for customers. There's a reason to be able to spin something up, isolate it. Here's your own instance. Let's set this up as a POC so that you can see how this is going to work, right? So if you're listening, a lot of the experts are actually industry consultants, right? And so this is something that enables them. And I think probably everybody, I was going through Sample Exchange the other day, or actually last night with Corey. Me and Corey were running through the new Sample Exchange, which, by the way, is not usable yet. We've got some other projects spinning up for Sample Exchange to fix some of that. But we were going through all of William Lamb's Perl scripts that he's written, right? So there have been a lot of people that have written a lot of stuff to solve this problem of deployment, right? So I like this idea of a YAML file config that then goes and takes ISO images and go off and deploy the things as product stacks. That's pretty nice. And what William builds is more like one-off scripts to control things once you've got everything running, right? And that's also good. So it's nice. Where do you guys share the GitHub repository? How do people find this? Just they hear about it on a podcast? They figure out from your blog? Is there other ways that you share that this exists?
We usually share, when we do a new release, we share it on the social media. So it's both X
Twitter,
and LinkedIn. And I normally do a little write-up on my blog as well, just highlighting that, hey, there's a new release. We have done this, like for version 6. So that's normally the way we reach out. And then, of course, people that are following our project, they are following the GitHub repository, so they will get notified automatically when something happens there. So,
do the Ansible people ever give you any love? Do they ever promote kind of that, hey, you guys have built this for sitting on top of Ansible, right? You would think that maybe they would also, talk about it every once in a while as an interesting Ansible project.
I can talk a little bit that I've only come across one of the Ansible developers that deals with the vSphere stuff. He wasn't aware of our project, so when I shared it with him, he got pretty excited about it. I don't know where it went or what he's done with it, but other than that, I'm not aware of any others. Are you, Rutger?
Yeah, and some folks at VMware actually that are also developing the Ansible modules for the different VMware products. One of those reached out to me, and I think he said, like, this is really great. I mean, this is a great inspiration for us and for customers, and a great showcase just to be able to show what you can do with the Ansible modules or Ansible code.
I'm assuming that if I want to go read your Ansible code, right? I don't even know what language you use, right? But that I could go. I think is it PowerShell or some other shell that's or do they have a Ansible directive language?
It's basically an Ansible language. It's YAML, all of it, and so it's pretty readable. You can just go into the GitHub repository and it's all there in clear text. Copy it, do whatever you want with it. It's completely open
Right.
source. So
I was meeting with our CMO, Joan Stone. She's the Broadcom CMO now, and we were talking about, you know, like all the programs we own, and me and Corey and all that, which is why we're having this on Friday instead of Wednesday, because we had a show and tell with Joan. And I've worked with Joan since I've been at VMware for 20 years now, so she's been there 15, so I've known her the whole time. And I was talking about sample exchange, and the quote I used was, nobody writes anything from scratch. So when you're deploying in a big enterprise environment, you know, you don't start from scratch and go, okay, let's start writing. Like you go somewhere and you grab somebody else's code and you figure out what components you want, what you don't, what works, what doesn't. Nobody starts from scratch, right? And I said, VMware Code, the program, is about highlighting, you know, what people have already written so that people know of what's out there. And even if you're going to modify it, or at least you're just not starting from scratch, right? So appreciate that. And we had that conversation. She nods her head and goes, yeah, well, that completely makes sense. She understood it. She's always been a proponent of the community, and so it's great that she's there. So as we come into the last 15 minutes of the podcast here, I always like to start, like, what excites you for the future when you're looking at things. Obviously we had a lot of change with Broadcom acquiring us and refocusing back on the SDDC. I think that's great. You know, I like this because I'm a data center guy myself. I like machines. I like racks. I like noises. I like wiring. I like everything that's in a data center. I like pop-up floor panels. I like air conditioning units. I like fire suppression systems. I like geek out when it comes to that. So personally, I'm enjoying myself because I think Broadcom has that same vision. They might, you know, do their own way of releasing products, but I'm excited about that. What excites you guys going forward for the rest of 2024?
Oh, that's for sure, we're going to try to keep up with the new releases, you know. So I guess there will be a new release of vSphere somewhere down the road, NSX. So we're going to look at that, definitely. I know Broadcom is a lot about VCF, for example. That's not something that we will be looking at. I think that's another kind of audience that wants to look at VCF. What we want to do is really look at the products, and as long as they are like individual products, I think there's a value in offering a lab environment that just spins up those products that you can then play around with. So I think it's kind of business as usual. Me and Louise have contact very regularly. We have things going on. We will actually be doing a session at the Explore in Vegas as well around this project. So,
congrats! That's fantastic.
Yeah, really cool. So that's something we need to prepare. But
it's coming up fast, right?
It's coming up fast. Yes.
Right? We're like, wait a minute, we only got like 8 more weeks, and we're going to be 2 weeks away. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
Lewis, same question for you.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see what different features are released with the newer code as they come out, and often we'll look at those, and if something catches our eye, we'll one of us will take that on and see about implementing that feature set in the project. Great example is I'm big into federation with NSX. And so our project can actually deploy a fully federated NSX configuration across multiple sites, all from inside the project. So things like that we added in as they come out, and we're looking forward to seeing what comes down the line here.
Yeah, Corey Romero, I'm not sure we're allowed to talk about this, so I'll probably get myself fired if anybody actually from upper management ever listened to this podcast, which I don't think they do. But there are new products coming out. I know that, like, I've heard the rumors, right? And I know from a vExpert perspective, and Corey, from a vExpert perspective, I know there's going to be some briefs going on. Are you allowed to say anything about that, or is that kind of like not talked about at this point?
Yeah, can't talk about it other than the briefing is coming up. We mentioned the title in the email, but I can't even say.
Of course, you're not going to say what it is, but you are allowed to say, or you did send out to the experts that there is going to be a briefing, and if you want to sign up for it, you could, right? I mean, we're allowed.
Yeah.
All right, I wasn't even sure we were allowed to talk about it. It's like Fight Club.
Yeah.
might
Yeah.
not be able to even mention Fight Club, right? And if I talk about Fight Club, I'm going to get kicked out of the club. So yeah, so there is a vExpert brief that you could have signed up for, and it's all on NDA. But the exciting point for me, and I don't know anything about it because I don't actually track what Corey does. He just tells me what he does every once in a while, if I get to talk to him. But I am excited because apparently there is going to be some new stuff coming out, and we're getting past just Broadcom acquiring us to actually new technology, new products, new pieces of code, and that there will be some briefs on it. And I assume, but I don't know this, so don't quote me, that there will be some announcements at Explore. I'm hoping, because that sounds, if it's lining up for NDA briefs sometime in the next few months, then probably some announcements at Explore about product release and new features and new capabilities to the product will be exciting for me, because I think I felt like I've been in this churn Broadcom land, and I like tech, right? And I like learning new tech. I like optimizing, and the excitement, Lewis, to your point of new things that are coming out that you get to write to, right? And do something better than we did before was, kind of exciting for us. I can't go this show without asking both of you, where's AI in your footprint? What is your thinking about AI? I have guys come on this podcast. I look at the code sessions, and 60% of all the code submissions were all AI topic, right? I feel like everyone puts AI on their submission just so that they can get accepted. But for me, I've heard stories like, well, when I use AI, it allows me to write code more efficiently. I can actually, train my AI engine to start building more code. They put vSphere through it, and, it was able to write vSphere code. Are you guys even looking at any of this? Do you have any concept of AI, or is this just, that's way over your guys' heads right now? What are you thinking there?
Well, I would say it's very interesting. Definitely, I've been playing around a little bit with it, but not. I've not been using AI in this project. I think it was way more fun to try to figure things out myself, and of course we made a lot of mistakes and then learned by that. But I'm very aware that nowadays it's pretty easy to just open a ChatGPT session, ask for a script in some language, and it kind of rolls out a script that you can almost use immediately. So it's definitely interesting and also a bit scary, to be honest. But
if it weren't for that extra 20%, you wouldn't need to learn it, but you do, because there's that extra 20% that means it's not going to do what you need to do unless you learn it. Just going through William's scripts last night on Sample Exchange, I'm like, yeah, it's the 20% I don't understand that's the real problem here, right? That I have to deal with, right?
Yeah. Agree.
And like Rutger mentioned, I've gone in, I played a little bit with ChatGPT, but as for code in the project, I've always just written it from scratch for the same reasons. Part of this is learning and just the fun of it. So I myself haven't leveraged any AI to write any code for the project.
And then I'll follow up. That's one AI narrative, right? Like, are you using it to write any code? The next AI narrative is GPU management, right? Do you guys get into any automation of, vSphere has an AI tech reference architecture, right? And I think it's just vSphere, right? So I'm not sure there is any there with regard to configuring anything up the stack in order to deal with GPUs, but thought I'd ask.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. It's just more my impression. I've not been diving deep into it, but it seems to be like vSphere enabling or being prepared for some NVIDIA stuff.
GPU load balancing.
Yeah. There's probably much more to it, but that's my impression at least. And I haven't seen any, like Ansible modules or even Power CLI stuff. There might be something out there. So no, I haven't been looking into that stuff. And also, when people build labs, it's not necessarily it won't be hardware that has things like GPUs. But if the ask comes from the community, if somebody says, hey, I actually do have a bunch of servers with GPUs and I would love to do this kind of automation around it, we could always look into it. But
well, when we get into Ansible, right, I can see it might be a project you guys could look at. It might become relevant, which is, how do I make a GPU lab? right? Like if I want to just say, hey, go build me something that will allow me to make a 10 GPU, AI reference architecture so that I could then start building my models, right? You need that platform function, and you guys are in the business of automating the platform function. So maybe that's something that will be relevant in the next year or two, is just like, hey, I want to, I don't know how you buy 10 GPUs or what you need to do to get the hardware to do that. But I could see where I might need something set up to create an AI environment to go test building an engine, right?
Yeah, completely agree. Yeah, could be there could be definitely be use cases around this. So and like I think Luis, you said it before, we are always keeping our eye open for new technology, new solutions. It's often triggered by us having a project around at a client doing something that triggers us to look into a new addition to the project. So it's
Well, changing subject one last time as we run up to the top of the hour for us. We've been streaming for 50 minutes here, so I'll ask. So you do have a explore session. Do you know the title of your session yet? And I don't think you'll have a session ID. I heard this session IDs are going to be going out next week or the week after. Like they haven't really assigned them yet, right? But or they're going to name them. So we don't have code sessions yet. They're going to assign CODE and then the session number next week. But do you know the title of your session so we can get people queued up for that?
Yeah, the title is very catchy. It's want to deploy your SDDC.Lab in about an hour. I'll put it in the chat as well. That's the session title.
Nice. Want to deploy your SDDC.Lab in about an hour. Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's the session. I think we did get an ID already, but it's maybe not the final one. But
what's the ID? It could be
1138.
1138, and I have a feeling they're going to append something onto the front of it, like depending on what track you're in, you're going to get a track ID. Is what I've been
okay.
And so we got all our numbers. So you'll be 1138, but you might get innovative INV because there's going to be an innovative track. There's an SDDC track or VCF track, and so you'll probably get a track ID, and then it'll be 1138. And then author, you can always search on the tool by author. So Rutger, Rutger, or Lewis. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
What's your last name is because they just
Chanu, Chanu.
Chanu. It was under the title in your video, but then right at that time Julia put the header there, and so I was like,
there you go.
Lewis okay, Chanu. So look for Rutger or Chanu when you're in content calendar or schedule builder, and it'll be there. It'll fill up. It's going to be exciting. Anyway, SDDC, I'm super excited this year because I'm just an SDDC nut, right? Like for me, just I have a rack in San Jose that I just run myself for fun. It's my hobby. I was tired of paying the power bill at home and the AC bill at home in my garage. So, me and a buddy went and paid for a rack down in San Jose. And it's like $300, $200, couple $100 a month, right? Which is about the same as the power bill here. So, and the internet bandwidth to it is way faster. And I get to go into a data center, have all the noises of the server. So, very, very, very cool. Excited about that, as always. Okay, so you got a session. Look for the session. You guys, anywhere else between now and the end of the year that you want to promote or talk about, or any ideas before we ask you about barbecue?
What do you say, Luis? Do we have anything in the pipeline? I am not sure. We've been pretty busy. Yeah.
The only thing that comes to mind is I know this whole talk's been about version 6, but we are currently working on version 7, and that is in beta, but it's pretty solid. So if somebody wants to play around with that, they're more than welcome to. We always add new features into our dev environment or dev releases, or not really release, but what we're currently working on. So just look at the READMEs. We keep those updated, and that's about it.
And if you're really interested in writing Ansible, code, you got it on GitHub. I'm sure you would take somebody else to your project if somebody else wants to help out and use it and add back. I sounds like you guys are open to having some collaborators if there's anybody out there crazy enough to do that, right? Like,
Yeah, definitely.
always fun to do that.
Absolutely.
What is your GitHub repository? Do we have that? Like, if people want to go, we could probably say what that is.
Yeah, so the repository
/ something.
/ and then it's my first name, last name. So Rutger Blom.
All right.
Blom,
There you go.
and then / SDDC.Lab.
Okay.
I'll put it in the chat as well.
Yeah, put that in the chat. GitHub.com / RUTGERBLOM. And that's how to find. And then / SDDC.Lab is his project. Yeah. But if you go to RUTGERBLOM, you will actually you'll get there and you can see his projects and check it out. Go get a download and break it, right? And then go get another download. That's the beautiful thing about GitHub. You could just go grab it and hack it up, and then it doesn't work. You just go get another one. Right? It's all there. All right. Well, we're at the top where we have 5 minutes left, and the last 5 minutes of the show, because Rutger, you're in Sweden, and then Lewis, you're here. We talk barbecue because we stream on our YouTube channel, VBarbecue, VBARBECUE. If you want to look at what Rutger and Lewis looks like, you can go look over there and find the video. This is 693. It's live streaming there. We also live stream it on a couple other channels, but go take a look and say hello if you're at VMworld and tell him you know who he is. For barbecue, we always ask, what kind of barbecue do you do? What kind of barbecue you make? Do you do barbecue, or do you eat any barbecue in Sweden? So what's the Sweden barbecue story?
The Sweden barbecue story. What we do in Sweden is called grilling. So it's not the barbecue, it's grilling, but it's pretty similar.
Okay.
Pretty similar. Yeah. Pretty much everything goes onto the grill here in Sweden, so it can be.
So everybody in Europe always goes, "Oh, it's sausage. It's all about the sausage, right?" Like,
it's a lot of sausage. It's a lot of sausage, definitely. But I've seen salmon, and I've seen lamb and whatever.
So do you ever barbecue?
I have a Swedish barbecue here.
Okay,
so
what is that? Is it wood, charcoal?
Charcoal.
All right,
yes.
Charcoal. All right.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, there you go. Charcoal and sausage and salmon. There we go.
Exactly. Yes.
Lewis, you're from California, and there's these arguments between Texas and California and Louisiana. For people down Southern California, barbecue is just a rub. That's it. It's just charcoal with a rub. You don't put any sauce on it. You just basically grill it. I'd call it grilling, right? Because it is just grilling with a little bit of a rub, and it's all just about what you're using, oak or teak or any other cherry wood or whatever you're doing. What do you consider barbecue here, since you're from Silicon Valley?
Well, I myself don't do much barbecuing. That's my brother does a lot of that.
Sacrilege.
But I do enjoy eating.
You out of the chat right now. Leave. All right, so your brother does some. Okay, what do you got?
So he just does charcoal, but enjoy a good steak as well as some ribs, maybe. The common one is chicken, but that's kind of our barbecue when we do get together.
All right, and finally, Corey Romero. I know you're going to go outside any week now, right? And you got to be getting ready. You got to be going. You're going to get this. Are you allowed to eat beef up there in Utah? They still let you eat that up there? What's the deal?
Well, we've got all kinds of foods up here. When I cook outside, I smoke a lot of my meats. So I'll do ribs. Sometimes I'll do tri-tips. I'll do there's one cut I'm forgetting, it's the beef belly. I don't remember the name of the cut. That I'll do anywhere between 18 and 30 hours.
So you're the brisket man for sure, right?
Brisket, thank you. I always forget.
Yeah, nice. Well, hey, thanks a lot, you guys, for coming on Friday afternoon, late in the day. For all of you, it's only 2:18 here on a Friday afternoon, so it's not too bad. But you guys are already off hours. This is your weekend, so I appreciate you coming here, Rutger. We'll do one more shout out. Go to his blog, go to his GitHub site. Rutger Blom, thanks a lot for being here. Senior consultant with VMware SDDC. And Louis Chanu, president of On-Site Network Solutions in the Bay Area. If you're looking for a good network consultant, reach out to him, and I'm sure he can get you hooked up. Thank you for spending your lunchtime, or what's supposed to be our Wednesday afternoon lunchtime with us and talking about your tech. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.